My online guy. I'm going to get straight into it today. Hopefully, everyone's had a fantastic week. It's been pretty miserable weather here in Perth, but hopefully, everyone around Australia is enjoying whatever weather they have access to. As you guys know, it's been 6 months and counting now since I've had a beer. And apologies for not coming on last week. Last week I had some family commitments, so I couldn't do my Frothy Friday. But back with a vengeance. Got my can of no sugar Aldi Coke here. It's probably part and parcel with what we're about to talk about today about saving, about being more frugal. But today's live stream is something I've been toying up whether I do or not because, quite frankly, it's a little bit imposter syndrome. It's like, what? Who am I to talk about? Business and recession when quite frankly, I haven't been through a recession myself. So, I toyed with whether I do this as a topic or not, but I feel it's really personal to me because, I just think that there's some insights here that may help others. And, whether it's right, wrong or whatever, it's just my opinion on the macroeconomic environment and then as a business owner, how I'm preparing for what's potentially to come. And I want to qualify this. This isn't trying to be like a perma bear and get everyone upset. I believe as a prudent individual, you should be prepared for all possible scenarios. The Navy taught me that. And I believe that this is no exception, especially if you have a business with staff, you have several people, you have a lot of livelihoods that depend on your decision making. And I think it's important as a business owner to try your best and to look at all potential options and mitigate the risk where you can. That's all businesses is. So, like I said, the catalyst for this conversation today is I was speaking to a business owner at Squash this week, and we were talking about the economy and just general business banter as you do, and we were talking about that, and I thought actually it would be a good topic to talk about because there's probably a lot of business owners that haven't actually been through a recession, myself included. Now, like I said, I'm not necessarily qualified to talk about the macroeconomic environment and how that affects businesses, business recession and business growth. I'm not a business coach, but I feel like I am partially, at least in my own opinion, reasonably qualified to talk about the economy in general because for those who don't know, following the macroeconomic environment is a hobby of mine. I spend probably a solid hour and a half a day following just reading macroeconomic data and just interpreting it just because I enjoy it. So I do know a lot about the macroeconomic environment and historically what's happened in the past. And I just want to share my experiences with that and then what we're doing as my online guy to prepare potentially for a downturn in the economy. So, like I said, I wanted to create a bit of an intro here. I've got a bit of a structure today, so if you're wanting not a ramble, this isn't going to be a ramble today. I've made a bit of a structure and about what I want to talk about now. Why I think a downturn is coming, and it may not necessarily be today or tomorrow or in the next year, but why I think it's inevitable that there will be a retracement in the economy is several things. G'day, Impact Boys. Thanks for tuning in today. Very, very pertinent topic. Talking about the economy today, and that affects all of us. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. So, as you guys may be aware, interest rates rose in Australia 0.85%, and then the US government announced a 0.75% interest rate increase in the US market. Now, that was a good sign for the US for the stock market because they basically announced that they feel like inflation is only going to get to 2%, which is so wrong in so many levels. But basically, what they've effectively done is kick the can down the road for longer. The Federal Reserve in the US basically said that they don't think this is going to be something that happens. These kind of 0.75% increases aren't going to happen forever, and they're going to be very cautious about. They just want to raise interest rates until it slows the economy down enough for it to flip back over. I don't think it's going to work like that. I think inflation's going to run away, and we're going to have like a stagflation type event where. So traditionally, what happens in a recession is either you have an inflationary recession or a depressionary recession or depression. So you have either the price of everything going up because inflation is making everything get more expensive, but the inverse effect of that is demand decreases, or you have a depressionary scenario where things decrease in price, but like in the 1920s, but GDP decreases and stuff as well. A stagflation event is like what happened in the 70s, where GDP decreases, but the cost of everything goes up too. It's like the worst of both scenarios. And I believe, and so you have an increase in inflation, but you also have an increase in prices, and a decrease in GDP. So I feel like that's sort of what we're coming. Um, Basically, the other macro trigger I feel like is coming is consumer confidence is starting to decrease in the economy. You can generally see that by what the news is reporting on. The news will report on whatever will get clicks. And this time a year ago, it was all about how the economy is strong and everything. And if you've been following the news for the last 3 4 months, it's all doom and gloom, which is fine. Like that doesn't affect macroeconomic trends that much, but it does give you a bit of a temperature of the economy. And just little things like in March, I believe Target and Walmart do their earnings calls for the stock market. And basically, for those who don't know, when you're a publicly traded company, you've got to basically forecast what you think your revenue is going to be and your profits, and then the stock market works off that. And they basically price based on your performance as a business. They'll price that in so that like the pricing. So like, let's say your target and you're going to earn $1 billion. You feel like you're going to earn $1 billion in revenue next quarter, and you only earn 800 million. It has a huge effect on the stock price because it wasn't priced into because they expect you to earn what you say you're going to earn or be pretty close. And that didn't happen in this case. Walmart, Target, all the big box brands, which are generally the ones that do really well in environments like this, really got hammered because they're carrying too much inventory and their cash conversion cycle is too high. So basically, the general consent and their stock prices dropped like 30%. And the general consensus was, Target had all these supply disruptions, and there was so much consumer demand for goods that they overstocked, and then they had to basically give stuff away because their inventory wasn't moving quick enough based on how much they'd ordered, and that had caused a ripple effect through the whole supply chain that they have. So that's another macroeconomic factor, and then just wages and just general inflationary pressures on the economy are having a huge effect on cost of everything: your cost of production, cost of goods, cost of cost of living, and then the government's now announced an increase to the minimum wage, which is obviously good for staff. And I believe that the minimum wage has not kept up with the cost of living, but it has a huge, profound effect on businesses, and the amount that they increase it to will have a huge downward pressure on small businesses. So that's going to be another factor because we're talking like a $5 an hour increase or $3 an hour increase. I kind of $80 a week, I think it was. If you're a cafe with 15 people on minimum wage, that's an extra $900 a week. It's a big cost, and I feel like the government just did it too aggressively. They needed to taper something like this in, or they just did it at the wrong time. And so that's my sort of preamble about sort of where I feel like what triggered this conversation, because the best time to prepare for a downturn or a recession or any kind of scenario that could affect your businesses is before it happens. Once you're into it, you don't have time to worry about the nuts and bolts and the fine tuning of it. You don't have time to worry about the big macro stuff that it will affect it. You only have time to deal with the day to day. So Brian's asked thoughts on interest rates in the next few years and its roll on effects. Yeah, I feel like that the horse is bolted. I feel like interest rates are not going to slow down, and I feel like it's going to have a huge macroeconomic effect. And maybe not so much. It's okay. So like the housing market has built in interest rate rises. The banks build in interest rate rises when they see if you can service a loan. Generally, it's about 3% above where your loan rate is. They go, but if you look at the 70s as an example of what happens when inflation runs away, they have to. The government has one or two choices. They either let inflation completely run away and create like a very, very high inflationary scenario, or they control it using interest rates, and they taper the growth off by increasing interest rates above the cash rate. So at the moment, interest rates are still quite low. The cash rate, which is the rate that banks borrow from each other, is really, really low. So money is still really cheap in the economy. And what interest rates, what increasing interest rates will actually have effect on is how banks lend to each other. So what happens, right? And again, if you want me to get into it, just let me know. But it's worth giving people a bit of a background on this, because a lot of people don't necessarily know all this, right? So that what the cash rate actually does, and what the Reserve Bank, what the cash rate actually is, and what the Reserve Bank actually sets, is the price that banks can lend money to each other at. So they actually regulate that. So let's say, for instance, all banks have a reserve, a fractional reserve they have to keep in there. So for every dollar that's in savings, they have to keep 10 cents within the bank. And the idea is that's there to absorb a bank run. Because in the past, before they had fractional reserve banking, the banks were supposed to keep all of your money in savings, and they weren't allowed to lend it out. They could only lend out money that was made from interest. Then they developed fractional reserve banking in the 30s, and that allowed banks to be able to go, okay, well, I have $1 million in deposits and savings. I can lend out a fraction of that. And that fraction has slowly decreased over time. So at the moment, it's around like 9, I think. So for every dollar that's in a bank, they can lend out $90 of that. And it's a biggest con. It's how banks make billions and billions of dollars, but effectively they can do that. So what they do, right, is a lot of times they'll lend that money to each other. So that, let's say there's the fractional reserve that you need to keep as a bank is $1 million. And let's say you have $1.1 million left over in saver deposits. You might go to another bank, or you will go to another bank and go, borrow this money off me at 0.1%, and make that money back. And then you can lend that money out, because it's now it's in a different part of your balance sheet. The whole banking system is just one big joke at the moment. But where this comes to a head is that movement of money is actually really important to the economy. It helps the economy keep moving over, and that's why they let it happen. As the cash rate increases, obviously the flow-on effect is that it gets harder to get loans from the bank. The loan requirements that the bank actually have are higher, based on the Royal Commission that the government introduced for like lending standards. And it was specifically designed to stop what happened in 2008 happening again. But the flow-on effect is you need to be able to service a loan that's like 2 or 3, 4% higher than what you're borrowing for. And as that gets higher and higher, where the rubber's going to meet the road with interest rates is when people have borrowed based on servicing a loan that's like 2 or 3% higher than where they are. But what happens if interest rates are 4% higher, 5% higher than where they are now? A lot of people borrow to their maximum capacity and have no budget, and have nothing in the tank left for a pulse. And the interest rates may not stay like that forever, but it'll be enough to do enough damage where the foreclosures start to happen, and banks start taking back these properties, which they don't really want. A bank's worst case scenario is they take a property off someone. And if they take a property off you, they've got to sell it on the market, and they're happy to liquidate it because they're just trying to get a percentage return on whatever investment they had. But once that flow-on effect, and once that sort of catalyst starts, the only way you can slow that down is by stopping people, is by like reducing the amount of movement of money in the economy. And that's what they do with interest rate. The only tool the government really has to control the economy is interest rates. And that's the tool they use. So I can see in the next few years, if the economy continues to keep heating up, and the housing prices continuing to heat up, and there's more pressure on families, interest rates will increase. What they will increase to really depends on how hot the economy gets and how much inflation there is. You see it all the time. There's bloody things of letters now that are $12. Inflation is a real thing, and it's the secret tax that the government has on people. But anyway, I can talk about macroeconomics forever. I love it, but let's talk about some specifics here. So I wanted to start with talking about ourselves. Now, I'm burying my neck a little bit, because this, this is a personal thing, obviously, and I'm opening myself to some criticism because at the end of the day, like I said, I'm no expert on this. I can only talk about my personal situation and what I feel like my responsibilities are. Like I said, opening myself up to some criticism because no one likes to talk about the negatives and the pragmatic stuff. Everyone wants to talk about, how fun it is running a business and, all the perks of running it. And yeah, look, I get some perks. I finish at 1 o'clock every day. Huge perk. No one likes to talk about the negatives and no one likes to be pragmatic about what can actually happen and prepare for scenarios. I want to talk a little bit about my online guy. And guys, as always, if you have any questions, whack them in the chat like Brian's done here and Impact's done. And I'll answer them as we go because it's important to understand what the potential channels are. And if you don't, do it anonymously. Don't have to just ping me anonymously and I'll answer them. You should never be embarrassed about asking questions about something you don't know about because if your ignorance is the reason your business fails, that's infinitely worse than giving it a good crack and having good understanding and preparing and it failing. There is a big difference between those two things. And you got other people's livelihoods at stake. So I feel like it should be your responsibility as a business owner to learn this stuff. All right, so I'm going to start with basically our plan as my online guy and how I formulate it and everything and a bit of background. So a big part of my strategy is keeping my ear to the ground. So what I mean by that is a lot of us consume information that's around business and around owning a business or consume information that interests us. So like fishing and camping and stuff, because we're all human beings and we have interests. You've got, as a business owner right now, or as my online guy and as myself and Pauline right now, we are keeping our ear to the ground. This time 2 years ago, I wasn't as concerned. I was watching the macro environment because that's what I enjoy doing, but I wasn't necessarily concerned about what was happening around the corner or like down the road or 2 streets from me or things like that. I wasn't concerned because, times were good. Like realistically, there was no indications from a macroeconomic perspective that the economy would slow down. The government was pouring money into it. Life was good. Let's be honest. Now what I'm doing is consuming information and keeping my ear to the ground. So when I drive home from work, I'm keeping an eye out for how many properties are popping up for sale. I'm looking at real estate listings. I'm looking and seeing what properties are coming onto the market and what they're selling for. Distressed sales. I'm looking at business listings too. That's the other thing you guys should be looking at is business listings. Just spend 10 minutes a day keeping an ear to the ground and getting a feel for what's actually happening in the economy, because the media will report one thing and what actually happens is another thing a lot of the time. So you can do that when you go to networking events and things like that. Just go and ask people how business is going, what are they seeing, try and share information. So I've made a more concerted effort as my online guy to keep an ear to the ground and just keep an eye out to see what else is happening in the economy that could potentially affect us as a business, because I look at this business as a big castle and look, we've got a pretty big wall, but if there's a big tidal, like a big horde of orcs coming towards it, you need to prepare. So like the best way you can do that, the best way you can get that forward notice that something bad's going to happen is by just consuming content that is not directly related to your business and what affects it. So just keep an ear out to the ground. So I've been doing that more, like I said, asking my accountant, like how's it looking out there? Asking other service providers, how are you doing business wise? Is it quieting down? Are you seeing, where is it quieting down? I generally bare my neck first and talk about my experiences and go, yeah, look, it's the top end of websites getting a bit quiet. Generally that opens up the conversation, but I feel like that should be one of the things as a business owner you should do now more than ever, is keeping it in the ground. It will give you that 1 or 2 months leeway. If it does start turning, you'll start to feel it. If you're keeping an eye out for it in the just the general ear to the ground, you'll get a head start on everyone else if it does start to turn. So that's what I'm doing. I haven't necessarily seen anything yet that would make me go, okay, we're going to the mattresses now. It's getting real bad. But I am starting to see a few things that are concerning me. The other thing I want to qualify is a frame of mind on this. So you can either look at something like this as a really, really bad situation. And, pragmatically, it's not a great situation. Going into a recession and a business going from like growth mode to capitulation and survival is not a good thing to think about. But you can either look at it, frame this as a bad thing or as a good thing. And quite frankly, I've just been working on my mindset going, actually, if the economy does slow down, it's a scary time, obviously, but it's actually probably a good thing, because if we prepare for this and we get better and we get more efficient and we survive it, we're basically going to have clear skies all the way to wherever we want to get to. At the moment, there's so much noise and there's so many inefficient businesses because money. It's because it's easy to run it. I'm not going to say that it's never easy to run a business, but it's easier to run a business, or it has been easier to run a business right now when there's so much movement in the economy money wise. Where the rubber meets the road is when the money dries up, and the businesses that are able to scrape through that are the ones that are going to come out of the cave, and there's basically just going to be an infinite amount of business on the other side. Because the way I see this is a little bit like a dot-com crash, for those who don't know, but like there's a reason why Amazon survived and the other 150, 200 e-commerce stores did not. And that is because of the way they treated their business. And I'm the same. It's like there's literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of agencies out there, right? But, let's be pragmatic and say it gets really bad. There may only be a couple of thousand agencies left. And if we can survive that and come out the other side, we're going to be so efficient to have survived it that we're going to basically be able to just grow infinitely at that point, because there's going to be like no competition. It's a bit like Forrest Gump. I don't know if, again, it's a movie, but it's a pretty good analogy. When he buys that shrimp boat, when he first starts Bubblegum Shrimp, he goes out and he's not getting any shrimp. And then there's a bloody hurricane. So all the other boats have like tied up and battened the hatches, and he goes out and he just happens to circumstance survive it. And then the hurricane wipes out the fleet. And on the other side of that, there's more shrimp than they can possibly handle. I feel like this is going to be a similar situation. If there is a downturn and you get super efficient and survive it, then the other side of it is you become the Amazons, because that's exactly what Amazon did. They literally survived it. A little bit of luck and a little bit of smart business. And then on the other side, they became the world's largest e-commerce retailer because there was literally no competition. For years and years, no one bought anything. And they just got so efficient during the dot-com, like the back end of the dot-com bust, that when they came to and built a reputation, and when people started buying again on the internet, they were it. That and eBay and a few others were it. There was no one else. So it's a bit of a survival of the fittest moment. My thoughts as my online guy and where we're taking my online guy is that the fittest is going to survive. And that is honestly what we're trying to do, is become super fit. We've been eating the pit. We've been high on all us businesses, and not everyone's. This doesn't apply to everyone, but most businesses have been doing really well during this period and getting fat off the pig. But it's time to go, okay, well, it's actually time to get ready for winter and carry those fat stores into winter so that we can survive and then have another big pump. So that's my thoughts on it. So I talked about efficiency there, and that is one of the key flavors of the business right now. So we've gone from like trying to grow and trying to expand to getting more efficient. So we've artificially capitulated. For those who don't know, capitulation is where you kind of shrink in size. We've artificially capitulated ourselves to give us more breathing room to be able to get more efficient. I feel like that if we're into a downturn and a recession and we're trying to get efficient, then it's too late. You've got to be efficient before it happens, because it's going to happen like that. Like I said, I have not been through a recession. I've not been through a downturn, but I have read a lot about them. And the experiences of business owners that when you watch postmortems from like the 70s and 80s and the 90s and the 2000 crash and the 2008 crash, is it happens like that. One day you wake up and the business just dries up. When that's happening, you don't have time to worry about efficiency because you're trying to maintain cash flow. So we've made a decision as a business to go, okay, it's the flavor, the season of this business now is efficiency. We've been growing, and we've grown to a size where it requires this kind of economy to stay solvent. We need to get more efficient so we don't become insolvent if it gets tough out there. So that's what we've been working on there. And one of the things is our processes. We've been really developing our processes so that we can cut the inefficiency out of it using robotic process automation. So we can't just hire staff forever. I don't want to hire staff on just to go in 8 months and go, oh, sorry, you three have to go because we can't afford to have you anymore. So we are working on our what's called robotic process automation to automate through robotics, automate tasks that are inefficient for a human to do. Now, these aren't like building the website and stuff, but it might be like setting up a staging site. It's our direct outreach process. All that is now being or partially being done by robots. And by the end of this quarter, a good chunk of our processes that can be automated by robotics will be automated by robotics. So that's another way we're improving our efficiency. Just keeping the team in the loop and going, okay, well, this is the reason we're pushing efficiency so much right now, is because I am personally responsible for 10, 15 people's salaries now. And I want to make sure that no one rocks up and the doors are locked and the building's shuttered. So everyone has to chip in for that to happen. And I'm not asking people to take salary cuts or anything, but I'm trying to build the mindset in the team right now that it's all of our responsibility to get us through this. I will carry the load and I will carry the whole business on my shoulders. But what I can't do is carry. You guys have got to like think about ways we can be more efficient. If you guys see ways to be more efficient, this is the time right now to tell us so we can make sure that we carry ourselves through the worst of it. And and I'm lucky that we have an absolutely amazing team. And I'm not saying that because they could be listening. I am saying that because we do. We have one of the best teams in the industry. We are so fortunate about that. And we have a team that actually gives a shit whether Paulie and I survive this. So super lucky to have that. But that's also been a positioning thing, and we're very transparent. And I want to make sure that the team knows they have job security coming in. So that that leads into efficiency. It's like, if they know that our mindset is efficiency and not growth anymore, they'll, instead of looking for opportunities of growth, they'll look for opportunities to be more efficient. And I've seen that in the team. They're coming to me with ideas and concepts that I couldn't have thought out because I'm not as close to the ground as they are. They're seeing ways like going, case in point, they're going, oh, Jimmy, should we really be doing that for free? Questioning me and calling me out on things to make sure that I'm getting gut checked, because I'm going to do a video on this at some point. As an owner of business, it's really easy to get caught in this being the king syndrome, where no one questions what you do, so your decisions are final at the end of the day, and you only answer to the person upstairs, and no one holds you accountable. It's why everyone needs a business coach. But I can talk about that at another point. But another thing we're trying to work on is our customer loyalty. It's going to get harder to find customers. That is the natural side effect of a downturn. The customers will still be there, but it will get a lot harder to find them. And it will get a lot harder to get money out of their pockets, as bad as that sounds. But it's the truth. So we are working on our customer loyalty and going, our best source is, instead of just me selling in the business, we have hundreds and hundreds of clients selling in the business and selling what we do. So if someone is looking for a website or is looking for a marketing, we are the first people they think of. So we're working on our customer loyalty. We're working on our communications with our clients, because we're going to have a lot of, if the economy does turn, we're going to have a lot of scared clients. And scared clients think irrationally, and they might want to drop their marketing. So we need to have clear lines of communications now, so that when it gets to that point, they don't necessarily go, oh, we're going to drop our marketing, because they understand the value of it. We're communicating through it, and we're walking them through it step by step and holding their hand going, it's going to be all right. We've got your back. It's going to be harder to find clients, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're not there. You still need to market, and you still need to find these people. So we are working on our client loyalty, and that's an ongoing thing. We've always done that, but I've stepped that up and made that a priority in the business. That client loyalty and client communications is going to be what carries us through this. And we may not have as many clients in a year, but the clients we do, we need to treat like kings because they're going to have a choice of where they go to. At the moment, like there's so many businesses that are busy that if you're a mechanic shop, you're probably 6 months booked in advance. And because of that, you've been like, oh, stuff it. I don't need them. They can go somewhere else. I don't need them. But what happens if you're only like booked a week in advance and you've been telling all these people to suck an egg and going, oh, if you don't like it, go somewhere else. And then they're like, haha, I need my car service. Now I've got a choice of 10 people that really want to work with me. I remember the way you treated me in my car. I'm going to somewhere else. People forget that. It's easy to forget that when you got 6 months of bookings in advance. And it's also easy to go, oh, I don't need marketing because I am booked 6 months in advance. But the reason you do marketing is to flatten out this down like quiet periods. So yeah, it's busy right now and it's hopefully stays busy forever. I'm not trying to be pessimistic about this. It's being about being pragmatic. But it's the worst thing you can do is not do marketing right now. I think that is one of the silliest mistakes a business can make. And I'm not saying that because I'm a freaking marketing agency. I'm saying that because if you're not doing marketing now, the ramp up time for it to work is long. A month, if it turns like that, a month is going to feel like a freaking eternity. And that's how long it takes to set up Google ads or Facebook ads or these channels that get direct response. You've got to you can't just turn a warship on a dime. So if you're not at least a month ahead of the economy turning, you're going to be in a lot of trouble when when you're looking for it and people are like, well, I can't help, you may only have a month's worth of cash flow and you need something that works right now. Well, wouldn't it be more prudent to start marketing now and then not need it than to have to worry about marketing and your cash flow and worrying about it getting leads like that day when a marketing agency can't perform miracles? They need time to set this stuff up. That's just my personal thoughts. Obviously, that doesn't affect us as much because we have a very robust marketing plan. Whether it's the best marketing plan, I don't know. We've gotten lazy with that too, and we're working on that. But that's our efficiency. We're going, okay, well, how are we gonna communicate with our channels and find the business if it's a bit harder to find? The next thing we've done is we've got our plan A. Obviously, plan A is getting more efficient. But what's our plan B, C, and D? And we've been talking about that internally and working out what are our plans if the economy does turn. And we developed them 6 months ago. They are a thought exercise. They're not necessarily something you're going to action right now, but they're a thought exercise. The worst thing you want to do as a business if it slows down is have to worry about where is the cash going to come from? What are you going to do if you get a 30% drop in your revenue? What are you going to do if you get a 50% drop in your revenue? You got to think about this stuff. You may not necessarily action it, but you've got to think about this stuff. It's like, okay, well, what happens? So in our business, right? Let's talk about my online guy because it's again. So we have a plan B, we have a plan C, and a plan D. And at the moment, we're running off plan A. Plan B is we stop taking a salary out of the business. We are working on our personal finances to make it so we run that lean. Like I said, the Audi Coke, we run that lean that we can sort of live off. And we're not 100% there yet. I wish I could say that we're super lean, but we want to get to the point where it's why I still do the eBay stuff. As much as it's a bit of a, it's not replacing income or anything like that. If it did get quieter, that could be one of our primary sources of income. So a plan A for a plan B for us is personal responsibility as business owners and going, okay, well, who's going to sacrifice here? Because I want to make sure that the team we have now is the team we have when the doors open up and everything is perfect and the money is just flowing in because there's businesses everywhere trying to gain back lost traction. I don't want to lose so my goal as a business owner through this downturn is not to lose a single team member. Whether that happened, that's our plan B. Our plan C, it gets a little bit deeper than that, but I've already given this stuff thought. I've gone, okay, so I'm not going to be, if we have a 30% downturn tomorrow or 20% downturn in the next couple of weeks, I kind of know what the plan is. It may not be the best plan, but at least it's something. And then we can adjust it as we go and take it week by week, month by month. But we can shift our thought process and go, guys, we've already thought about this. Yeah, it's going to be tough, but we've already agreed that we want to carry everyone through this. So how How are we going to do that? Well, Paul and I stopped paying ourselves. Okay, we stopped paying ourselves. What's after that? Well, okay, we have to have some serious thoughts about what we do. We have to lean out. But that's, I think, where I'm getting at is that we have just thought about a plan B, a C, and D as a thought exercise. It's sitting there on the sidelines. It's not something we've actioned. Plan A is to keep generating revenue, keep generating profits, business as usual. Plan A is getting more efficient. Plan B, C, and D is that. So they're a bit of stages in the business. I recommend every business at least go through with their leadership team and have that thought exercise because it's a pretty hard thing to have a thought about when you're like not going to make payroll. So you need to think about that stuff before it happens, in my opinion. Our business model. So we've been looking at our actual business model and going, okay, well, at the moment we service pretty high-end customers, our clients, but we've been working on our solutions for the end of town that maybe doesn't have the budgets that the big end of town does, where the loyalty isn't as good. So we've been working on solutions that can work with smaller businesses, and we've been running a couple of pilot programs. And quite frankly, if someone's watching and they're a small business and they want to be on this pilot program, give me a hit. We've come up with a solution that can work. We've been developing our pilot programs and testing them to go, okay, well, if the market does slow down, what is our actual business model? If the big end of town drops right off, what is our business model? You can't chase a market that doesn't exist or is basically going into capitulation. So where is the money and how do we get it? As bad as that sounds, I know it sounds like a transactional thing, but it's the best way to explain it. We've also been looking at our revenue channels and going, how can we increase the lifetime value of our existing clients? How can we find more ways to diversify our revenue streams? How can we So something we've been investing a lot of time into is banks of hours. So having clients that prepay for portions of their time so that we can provide the service with a bit of front-loaded income, so we can put that income into growing getting it more efficient. Some things we've been doing is going back to our clients with different ancillary services that we now offer that they didn't know that existed. One thing we're going to be working on next quarter is actually making a more concerted effort to have like a upsell channel so that we can time when we do this stuff. At the moment, it's just like sort of ad hoc. And then channel diversity, that leads into the last bit we've been focusing on, which is our diversity of our revenue streams and our channels for acquisition. So, at the moment, most of our acquisition comes from either search engine optimization or word of mouth, this kind of stuff. But we've actually started doing a lot more direct response marketing, which is effectively going to someone and asking if they need help. So we've developed a channel for direct response marketing. We're going to develop our social media channels so they're more robust and more concerted. We're also going to start to look at our brick and mortar advertising and seeing if there's anything we can do there to increase our reach. And then the final stage of that is probably going to be investing in paid ads, which we've never done as a business. But I'm not doing that from a philosophical perspective. It's been just no requirement. But I would be not practicing what I preached if we didn't explore that channel and actually go, we need to start doing paid ads, because it's the referral channels have like dried up. So the best time to do that is right now. It's not 6 months from now. So we're developing those channels and stuff as well. So that's what we're doing as a business. Now, what are things, I got down here, like what are some things that business owners can do for themselves? Obviously, we're unique circumstance because we don't have a high cost of goods. Our cost of goods is mainly labor. So it's easy to manage because we don't have a cash conversion cycle, which is basically, buying inventory and the time between buying inventory and selling it. We don't have a high cash conversion cycle. Generally, our labor is sold instantaneously, and we have a 7-day sales invoicing cycle. So we have a very, very fast turnaround on cash, which is good for us. But let's talk about a business that doesn't necessarily have like, let's say you're a brick and mortar business, coffee shop, for instance. I'm going to talk about I'm going to talk as if you weren't a service-based business, because I think if you're a service-based business, you should be probably following our what we're doing, because it will work for an accountant or a lawyer or anyone that sells time. Now, let's say you sell a product. Let's say you, like you said, you're a coffee shop, you sell coffee beans, or you're a aircon mechanic where you sell service and so you sell products and a service. So plumber, coffee, aircon company, things like that. These are some things that I've written down that I think could work really well for you guys. The first one is don't stop marketing. I said that before, but I think the worst thing you can do if it does get quieting is to chop the marketing, because the marketing may be the one thing that makes your business survive through this period. What I think you should do is make your channels more efficient. I think you should look at your business, your marketing, and go, is it actually getting a return on its investment? And start exploring whether the people you're working with are getting you what you need, and the people you're working with are the people you want to be working with when times are tough. At the moment, you can basically work with anyone and get a return, but you need to work with a agency or a marketing, or do your marketing with people that you're going to get into the trenches with and get dirty with, that you're willing to share secrets and willing to share critical information with, so they can help you make decisions on that. So that's what I would definitely say. Don't cut your marketing, but really look at it and go, is it doing what it needs to do? Is it going to do what it needs to do in 6 months? Is it set up for a downturn? Is it set up for a growth phase, or is it set up for a capitulation phase? If it's not set up for a capitulation phase, have that conversation with your marketing agency now and go, Jimmy, what are we going to do if it gets quiet? What's the plan? If they can't, if they obviously you're going to blindside them, and they're not going to have a plan, off the bat. They probably haven't been thinking about it. But if they're good agencies, they will come back with a plan and go, look, Jimmy, this is what I think we do. We go, it's not working right now. Okay, let's switch to our capitulation strategy, which is about not growth, but it's about maintaining the status quo. And then the third phase of that is like, okay, well, we're in survival mode now. This is the marketing we're going to do if we're in survival mode. It's just about paying bills, because they are different types of marketing. So that's definitely something I would tell you to look at. Don't cut your marketing. Worst case scenario you can do is cut your marketing, but talk to the people you work with to see if you can make your marketing more efficient, or to see if it has plan A, B, C, and D in it. The next thing you can do as a business is work on your plan and know where your key numbers are. As a business owner, and it's surprising how few business owners actually do this, you need to know where your numbers are. And not just the number that makes you a lot of money that can buy you the boat. Where is your break-even point? Where is your 10% drop in revenue? Where does that leave the business? How much free cash flow do you have in the business? You've got to know this stuff. Right now, you don't need to, because most people, the numbers are going up and to the right. You don't need to know where your break-even point is if you're never going to touch it. But what happens in 6 months if you need to know where your break-even point is, because you need to make key decisions based on that being an inflection point? You need to know these numbers. You need to know, if I don't make $100,000 a month, we are losing money. If we don't make $80,000 a month, we can't keep the lights on. You need to know these numbers. It's not just the responsibility of your accountant to know those numbers. It's a responsibility of you to ask your accountant and to tell you, because the accountant will know these numbers, but they probably haven't told you because you haven't asked. But you need to know where those numbers are, because it's too late if you're looking down the barrel of a bad month and calling the accountant going, I need to talk about the numbers, because they're probably trying to work out if you can pay them. You need to know where those numbers are, so you can go like 3 weeks before and go, Jimmy, accountant, my number, like we're not in target. We're not going to hit. We need help. What are we going to do? And then your accountant can come into their own and go, oh, actually, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take money from this account, move it over here. We're going to ask the ATO for a pause on our BAS. There's things that accountants can do if you know what you're asking them. If you go, help me, they don't see the day to day. They need to understand what's happening day to day, and they need some time. That, like us, they can't just turn on a dime. You need to give them a month's notice and go, Jimmy, I have a very good relationship with our accountant, and I know if I call up Aaron and go, Aaron, it's not looking good, mate. We have not much cash coming in. What can we do to make it payroll? I know Aaron will sit there and think about it and give us a good answer. But if I don't know those numbers, I'm going to go to Aaron too late and go, oh shit, I've got like a day and I can't make payroll. You can see it's making me emotional because it's upsetting to think there's so many businesses out there that haven't actually given this any thought. And you're talking about people's livelihoods, not just yours. You're talking about people, like people's jobs, and people don't seem to take that seriously. They're just like, oh yeah, we'll just get rid of staff. That should be like your absolute worst case scenario. If you don't have staff that you want to carry through this, then they shouldn't be working for you right now. But anyway, like, I just think it's important for a business to know their key numbers and know where those break-even points are and where those capitulation points are, so that if it does get bad, they can give a heads up to their accountant or whoever they work with, their business coach or whatever, and help them work you through this, because you're not expected to be an expert in it, but you are expected to be like the early warning system to a tsunami, so the accountant doesn't go, oh shit, there's a big wave on the horizon. Jimmy, there's a big wave on they need to have some advance notice. Start getting efficient. I've spoken about this. There is so much inefficiency in business right now because time is good. There's a lot of money around. Time is good. So businesses are just trying to capture it. What happens when you do that is you get inefficient. And we did too. We've been running really inefficient, sacrificing efficiency for growth. But now we've flipped. We're not necessarily worried about growing anymore. We're worried about getting more efficient. You should be too. And that's just my personal advice. I'm just a random guy on the internet. Don't have to take it. But if you're not efficient now, in 6 months, if the economy turns, you're not going to be any more efficient and you're going to get absolutely smashed. So it is a perfect time to allocate time and some time to going, how can we make the business more efficient so we can make more profit? You should do that anyway as a business, but you just forget it. When you're making twice as much revenue as you ever have, and so you're making, as more revenue than more profit than you ever have, the last thing you worry about is going, oh, I want to try and make, instead of making $1.10, I want to make $1.20 on every dollar we do. You don't care about that, but you do care about it when you're making 80 cents on every dollar and you need to make that $1 on every dollar. You do care about it then. So my advice is to start working on efficiency. Talk to information architects, talk to people like Pip over at Project Box, and start to work out where are the chinks in our armor, where are the first places that the economy, downturn in the economy is going to hit us, and bung those holes. Put something in those holes, whether it's a robotic process automation, whether it's just using Zapier, or whether it's just upskilling staff. There is efficiency in everything that you do that needs to be tidied up, because when it's tight, when it's going to get tight, and I feel like it's a matter of if, not when it's going to get tight, those efficiencies are going to kick you in the dick. Those inefficiencies are going to kick you in the dick. Honestly, like, that is where businesses are going to fall. Businesses have become so inefficient right now that when a downturn happens, the only businesses that are going to survive are the ones that are super efficient and can live off a smell of an oily rag. That is my advice to everyone. Another bit of advice I've got is get your personal house in order. I think the natural side effect with how good it is that our personal houses have gotten, are not in order anymore. Like, there's lots of money floating around the economy. Those Netflix subscriptions and those little subscriptions you've had running because you've got the extra $10 a month to pay for it. If there's a downturn, as prudent as it sounds and as stingy as it sounds, we know what we're dropping. We know we've started tightening our personal expenses up now, and business is still good. You've got to, if you're not willing to sacrifice as a business owner to make sure that the other people in your custody, for lack of a better term, your people that you employ aren't looked after, then sorry, you are a very, very poor business owner. You shouldn't be hiring people if you're not willing to look after them before yourself. It's a sign. As if there's anyone that's watching this that has that works for someone, if you can tell the business owner doesn't actually care about you guys, then go find somewhere that will, because the rubber will meet the road when times are bad. If they genuinely don't give a shit about you, then you'll be the first thing to go to save revenue. Because quite frankly, the single biggest expense of our business is staff. But it doesn't mean it's the first thing that's going to go. We're going to, if we have to get rid of staff, we would have exhausted all options before that happens. And I like to think that our team knows that. Whether I articulate well enough is irrelevant. But the one thing you can do is go, okay, I take, let's say hypothetically us, Paul and I, we take a pretty piss weak salary, to be honest. We take about, 60 grand between us. So 30 grand between us, right? 60 grand between us. That's like 4,000 a month or something. We know that if we really come down to it, we could not take a salary out of this business for a while. And that frees up $5,000 a month. So, that's a person's salary. Now, as a business owner, you should be able to do that. Let's say you're taking $15,000 a month out of your business because you're just baller and you're living the best life. Can you live on $10,000 a month? If you have to take 15 out, can you live on 10? Can you live on a 25% decrease or 30% decrease in your salary? We've based it off that. We've based it on, okay, what percentage of the business can downturn before we really have to start worrying about whether we're going to let people go. And we've got a pretty big buffer. At the moment, we need the economy to kick the can down the road a few more months, but we are building our efficiencies in, so we know that, like, if the economy turns X percent, we can survive it. Whether that number's 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%, depends on your industry. If I was a cafe right now, I'd be working out and going, can I survive on half of the income as a business, half of the revenue we get at the moment? Can this business survive? If it can't, then that's the number I'd be working towards. If I was with us, with retainers, it's not 50%. It might be 30, it might be 20. But like, can you survive with a portion of the income that you're getting at the moment, revenue coming in, not being there anymore? And that's what you need to be, you need to get to. So the way you do that is personal sacrifice. Is your personal house in order so that you can do that? Communication with staff. I think, something we've been working on is our lines of communication with our staff, our HR, our performance meetings and stuff like that. Our setting KPIs and stuff. It's going to be a scary time for everyone, not just as a business owner. It's going to be a scary time for the staff, for everyone involved in business, whether you're a staff or an employee. There's going to be people coming to work every day wondering if they've got a job. The only way you can create that comfort for staff members is if you actually communicate what's happening within the business. I'm very honest and transparent with our team about where this business is at. We fly close to the sun because we've been growing, but we're trying to expand that gap now. I said to the team, I was like, you will know if we're going to have to shut a shop, you guys will have a lot of advance, and I'll do everything in my power to help you guys get into the workforce again. I'm not just going to shutter the door one day and everyone's going to be like, oh, what happened? Or the team's going to have to go, oh, do we have a job tomorrow? Do we have a job tomorrow? Do we have a job tomorrow? Because I just don't think that's good for efficiency. If your team's worrying about whether they have a job and not worrying about doing good work, then when the market is deciding who they work with, as opposed to just working with anyone because they're too busy, they're going to pick the people that do the best work. So that's I think if it's unnecessarily, it's something that you can control, the communication as a business owner, and I just feel like you should do that. Because if your team's sitting there worrying about whether they have a job or whether the agency is going to, or your business is going to survive, then they're not focusing on doing good work. So that's what we're just trying to do here. And, to be fair, you should be trying to give them that courtesy. If they need to look for another job, you need to give them as much notice as possible so they can try and find it. I don't know. I feel like it's a karma thing. I feel like if you don't do that, then it will come to bite you in the ass at some point. When you need good people, they're going to be like, no, I remember how you treated me with Downturn. I'm now in a place somewhere where I'm treated better. Don't know. Now, the main thing I wanted to talk about is this cash conversion cycle and Target. So like I said, Target just got absolutely smashed because their cash conversion cycle was so terrible. As a business owner that deals in products, you need to know what your cash conversion cycle. And I actually found the Investopedia definition for it, which is the mathematical formula is days, the number of days you have products in inventory versus the vendor, like the receivable finance you have on that. So days receivable on those products minus the days payable. So let's say, for instance, you're an account, a aircon company, and you get 30-day terms from your supplier for aircons. You should be aiming for a cash conversion cycle less than 30 days so that you can pay for those products without paying any interest or any actual negative, like paying interest on that money that you've either borrowed or put aside for it. And it's a gap between the time you pay your suppliers and you receive payments for your product. A lot of businesses don't have a plan B for that. At the moment, their cash conversion cycle is really good because there's just so much inventory moving out the door. But what happens if you sit on a whole bunch of air conditioners that you've paid for, that you've got on vendor finance effectively, supplier finance, and it comes 30 days and they're wanting their money? What is your plan for that? There's so many businesses that become insolvent because they just don't have a plan for that. That is your single biggest risk as a business owner with products. So, have you sorted out what you're going to do for bridge financing? Have you spoken to your vendors and seeing about if you can come up with some plan B arrangements? Your vendors are not wanting you to default on a whole bunch of products. They need you to sell their products as much as they are supplying you. So if you go to them and go, look, I'm just back in my mind thinking about this, but can we have a look at our terms? Can we extend our terms on these products? I really want to sell them. I really love them, but it's starting to slow and I can't carry as much. I will carry X amount of inventory if you give me 45 days payment terms on these products, or 60-day payment terms. It's one of the flip sides of the economy turning down. You are the customer to those vendors, and those suppliers, and the suppliers want you to buy their products. So they're going to work with you to make sure that you keep buying products. So it's a perfect time right now to look at your cash conversion cycle and go, how can we make this more efficient? So the same way we're looking at our efficiency and looking at our customers and and decreasing our time between things, if you're an aircon company that carries stock right now, you should be looking at your cash conversion cycle and how long it takes for products to move off the floor. Are you going to start to discount the stuff that hasn't moved so it's not sitting on floor plans? That's the kind of stuff you need to be looking at as a product-based business. You should know as a coffee shop how long it takes you to sell a bag of beans. And you should be going, okay, well, these beans aren't selling quickly. I'm going to have to reduce the prices of these and adjust my carrying levels to make sure that I'm not carrying too much if there's a downturn. Because if it's bad now, it's only going to get worse if there's a downturn. And then what do you do if you're sitting on a heap of... that's what happened to Target effectively, is they bought a heap of products based on their assumption of the market, and then they got absolutely pissed on because everyone stopped buying consumer goods, and they had to basically liquidate it because their cash conversion cycles were too high. So something to think about. The next thing you can do as a business owner is build your network out. Build your network of other business owners so you can lean on them and become a bit of a tribe. So I've got a group of friends that that are business owners, and I talk to them, talk shop, but I will lean on them if I need to. Like if I need something from one of them, I will lean on them, and vice versa. The more people you have in your network that you can talk about this and keep an ear to the ground to and help and effectively become a co-op of ideas and information, the better chance you have of surviving a downturn. That's why co-ops exist. You can share information, knowledge, and competitive advantage to make sure that whatever business is floating around, you got the best chance of getting it. Because the only businesses that really truly benefit from a downturn is really, really big businesses, because it flushes out smaller businesses, because a big business has built efficiency into their model a lot of the time. So they come out the other end stronger. The Walmarts of the world, even though they're struggling now, are going to come out of this downturn stronger, not weaker, because they have whole teams that are dedicated to mitigating risk. And that's part of what it is. The next thing is protecting your cash flow as a business. Your cash flow is everything. And at the moment, everyone's cash flow is pretty loose because, quite frankly, it's good times. So you can afford to be a little bit looser with your cash flow because there's a consistent flow of revenue coming in. But, cut back on unnecessary spending. The best time to start cutting back on unnecessary spending is right now. Go and look at all your subscriptions. Go and look at what your team uses and go, do we really need that right now? And I appreciate that it probably sounds stingy from your staff perspective, but quite frankly, it shouldn't matter what your staff think. If you're paying for Milwaukee tools and you got some kind of arrangement, start looking at this stuff going, do we really need it right now? Is this going to help us truly generate revenue and help us with cash flow? If it's not, it's got to go. Because if it doesn't go now, it'll be the first thing that goes in 6 months when you're quiet. But you just will have less time to make good judgment calls. You'll be starting to cut things that don't want to be cut, and then you end this perpetual cycle where you got unhappy staff. Just not worth it. Do it right now. Renegotiate vendor agreements. I spoke about that. Arrange your financial assistance now. What is your plan B if you have a reduction in cash flow? Do you have credit cards paid down? Do you have debt options available to you right now that you're not using that you can just turn on and get liquid cash straight away? You've got to have those in place. You've got to have them right now. If you don't have them right now, there's no harm in getting a business line of credit right now and then not using it, or a credit card right now and not using it. There's no harm in that. But if you do need to make payroll, you've got to work out how you're going to do it. What is your plan? Do you have bridging finance available? Do you have plans for getting finance quickly? If you don't have that, then you're gonna really struggle, and that's a big. You don't want to be thinking about that when you need to make payroll. You want to be thinking about that now so that you can make payroll. And I'm just looking. The final thing, I'm going to end this now because I've got to go in a sec. But the final thing is, don't give up. Again, I haven't been through a downturn, but I'm already a little bit disheartened. I'm not giving up, but I'm a little bit disheartened because you got a lot of people out there that are going to be hurting. Whether it's business owners or business owners or the staff or wives of business owners or families. There's going to be a lot of hurt in the economy if it does turn. One sec, sorry guys. Just one sec. Let's see. Just had to send an email. There's going to be a lot of hurt in the economy, and you can. One of the hallmarks of a business, of a really, really good business and a really, really good leader, is not rolling over. It's what separates the bad businesses from the good businesses, I reckon, is not rolling over. It's also what separates employees from people that are willing to put the risk into starting the business too, for those who are watching that don't have a business. I will never roll over. It's my personal philosophy. It's always been my life philosophy. I will never just give up. I said that I've gone through this in another video before. I will do everything I can. If this business folds because of the environment, I'm going to be able to put my hand up and go, I did absolutely everything I possibly could. Sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes you just get dealt the wrong cards, and they don't work out for you. That happens. It's just a fact of life. You can do everything right and still get kicked in the dick. That is just the nature of business. But you need to be able to put your hand in your heart and go, look, I gave it a red hot crack and did everything I possibly could. I knew this downturn was coming. I prepped for it. I did everything, but I just couldn't make it work. All that does is make you a stronger leader and a better business owner. And then when you do go and start the next business, because you will, once you start a business and you get a good taste for it, you get the bug and it becomes very addictive. So you will start a business in the future. One of those businesses you start will be the next thing that propels you forward. That's all I'll say is don't give up. Again, this could be 6 months from now, could be a year from now, could be bloody 15 years from now. I don't care, but I'm going to put this out there into the universe and hopefully it comes full circle if I need it. If you are struggling as a business owner, because it's tough and times are tough, let's go for a beer, let's go for a coffee, whatever. Let's have a chat. I don't think people appreciate how much help internally there is if you just ask for it. You shouldn't suffer as a business owner or anyone in silence, right? Like business owners have it the worst because it's you got to internalize this stuff not to spook your team. But it's hard being a business owner and seeing your business failing. It's hard. I'm fortunate that we haven't been in that position yet. We've had hard months, but I've also got a lovely wife and one of the best people in the world in the business as well. So she's my sounding board and vice versa. But you know, you hear of businesses all the time, and you hear of people, ending their lives and stuff because their business fails. And a lot of times it's not the end of the world. It feels like it at the time, but like no one should suffer in silence, in my opinion, with this stuff. So that's another thing I'll just end on is like, yeah, it's if it does capitulate and it does get hard, I'm gonna have to finish Instagram because it's my phone's gonna die anyway, so I'm turning this off. But yeah, it's gonna be hard if it does happen, but just be honest, pragmatic, and just you know, know that there's people out there that are going through the same thing and are willing to talk about it. So, guys, I'm going to finish up here. Hopefully that was helpful. If not helpful for you guys, like I said, this whole live streaming thing is really just practically a journal for myself to make sure that I document our journey. I want to be able to have a living, breathing journal of my journey as a business owner from when I started to wherever it ends up. And I hopefully in like 5 years, it helps someone else going through this journey. And if we do go through a capitulation and downturn, I want to be able to watch this video and go, yeah, I was positive back then. And it may feel like shit now, but 6 months ago, I had the plan in place. I was feeling positive about it all. So I'm like a sounding board for myself, if that makes sense. But guys, keep your head up. That's all I can say. Don't get too disheartened. And honestly, it could all be good. It could all be fine. Don't let this be a bummer for you. Hopefully you have a good weekend. But I really do have to go. Thanks once again, guys. And let me know what you want me to talk about next week. All right, thanks once again, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.